Well, look who's assembling on our stage. Here they are, ladies and gentlemen. Here they are.
You gotta have heart. All you really need is heart. When the odds are saying you'll never win, that's when the grit should start.
Wow. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for coming. Elliot and I actually talked about this moment. We talked about how somebody was going to be up here on the podium. We were pretty clear it was going to be me before him. And that when it happened, we needed to pause to try to take in as much as possible. As most of you know, Elliot was a man who lived a moment. Frankly, this is not a moment I want to be in. But except for the fact that Elliot isn't here, it's a pretty spectacular moment. It's been pretty unbelievable, the amount and the kind of letters and support and outpouring of love that I've received. So thank you. We're going to have a service. We're going to have some prayers and some songs. We're going to have a lot of talking from his family who want to say some things, talking from some old friends of his. And then we're going to open up the floor to whoever wants to talk. Elliot wanted to be sure that there was enough time and space for people to talk if they wanted to. He also wanted to be sure that there would be food afterwards. So we will have food down the hall when the service is over. And we'll also have some cigars if anybody wants one. Elliot was very clear who he wanted to lead this service. And so I am really pleased to be able to honor his wish, many of his wishes, but one of them was to have Ray Lovett, who many of you know, lead the service. And so I will now turn it over to him.
Thank you, Anne. From the Torah, we read, on the last day, standing before Yahweh, you will be asked a single question. What pleasure did you not participate in? Would you not want to be Elliot in answering that question? Do you love life, baseball, cigars, men, women, the chat? You love the chat? Food, drink, and a habit of grasping me once in a while by the nape of my neck and drawing me close to him and kissing me on the neck. It was so sweet, and I will miss that. And he had a gentle way, that gentle kiss. Weren't you proud to send him a patient? And envious? Wasn't he fun and clever? After I ran a memorial service or two, it was Elliot who gave me the title, the Academy Undertaker. So I'm happy to be here with that memory. My memory is waning. It just did right there. Elliot, my memory is filled with you. In my prayer for myself and for all of us here, Elliot, help us be like you. So now I want to introduce Jonathan and Julian, who are going to lead us in prayer.
I'm Julian Spire, and Elliot's cousin. There are three prayers that are traditional traditionally associated with mourning. One of them is the one that one recites when one first hears the news that somebody had passed. The second one is a blessing that the deceased will reside in the Garden of Eden. And the third one is what is probably most familiar to you, the Kaddish, which is a prayer that glorifies God for all of his deeds here on earth. So I'm going to recite the first blessing to which you can respond, Amen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, dayan ha'emes. Amen. It's blessed are you, our God, King of the universe, who is the true judge. And the second is the prayer that's read at graveside. It's also read 4 times a year in what's called the Easter service. And as I said, it's a prayer that the deceased will always reside with Hashem in Gan Eden. El Malei Rachamim, Shokein Bamromim, Hamatzem Nucha Nechona, Al Kanfei Hashchina, B'Ma'alos Kedoshim U'Tahorim, K'Zohar Ha'Rikia Masirim, L'Nishmas. Now we mentioned Elliot's Hebrew name, Eliyahu Ben Yaakov, Shahalach V'Olamo, Ba'avur Shavli Neder, Etein Tzedakah, Yad Haskoras Nishmaso, B'Gan Eden Tehei Nuchaso, Lochein Ba'al HaRachamim, Yastirein B'Seisek K'Nafal V'Olomim, V'Yitzror B'Tzror Hachayim Es Nishmaso, Adnayim Nachalo, Lach Nachalaso, V'Yanuach B'Shalom Al Mishpavo, V'Nomar Amen. And then the last is the Warden's Kaddish.
I'm going to have my family and Jewish elders in the crowd to come up here too. This prayer goes back 2,500 years, and it's been said continuously of our people's day.
Amen. Yehi Shalom Rabba Shemaya, V'chayim Oleinu Yal Kol Yisrael V'yilu Amen. Oseh Shalom Rabba, Ya'aseh Shalom, Oleinu Yal Kol Yisrael. Amen. Circle of life. He's supposed to die for me, and that's great, you know. But then it's so overwhelming, you know. So I take solace in that it happened this way, and then it's overwhelming that it happened this way. And he never stopped saying amazing things to me throughout my life, and now I can't think of one thing. I can't. If I had a week, I'd be able to construct a beautiful eulogy for my father, but today I'm at a loss. So much of everything
So much of everyday talk goes in and out of our ears, but wisdom stays with us, and that's what my father had lots of. To him, talk was holy. When communication went to a higher level, he was in ecstasy. This is why he was such a larger-than-life person. If he had had religious convictions, he might have been a rabbi, and a rabbi with a keen sense of humor. There was a lot of filler, digressions, mumbles in my dad's speech, but you would hang on to each word because all of a sudden a thought would come out of his mouth that was so good, like a perfect crystal, and this would have a profound effect on me throughout my life. On the beach in Provincetown, a week after I graduated college, my dad talked about living life with an exposed heart. And that's something that clicked for me that day, and in my mind, I became an artist at that moment. I remember very clearly. So, a long time ago, I made a collage for my father that said, "Sometimes you speak flowers," and it's somewhere around here. I don't know, but it's in here. You'll see it. And I think he was more touched by this card than any other I ever gave him. And it's true. Sometimes he really did speak flowers. And I know so many of you relate to this, you know. And so with my dad, I had my own personal rabbi. And it's great to see everyone here.
I'm Barbara. I'm Elliot's daughter-in-law. A few months after Jonathan and I started dating, I moved to Minneapolis for graduate school. And I came back. I wanted to see him for winter break. We were now in a long-distance relationship. So this was December of 1995. And I also wanted to see my family in Florida, so I arranged to visit both cities. And when I got to DC on one of those nights, Jonathan and I met Anne and Elliot for dinner at Vidalia in downtown Washington. And Anne asked me, how does it work to go to both cities? Do you have to do a round trip? I said, no, it's actually called a triangle fare. Northwest flies to both Washington and Miami, so I'm able to, you know, just go to one and the other and go back and, you know, kind of explain it. When I look over at Elliot, he kind of had his head in his hands. And I kind of was like, oh my God, is he okay? But then Anne said, so how, when are you leaving? How long are you spending there? I said, well, you know, I priced it out the best way. And then Elliot all of a sudden just, no one fucking cares! No one fucking cares! True story. Elliot Blum didn't like small talk. Why would we possibly spend 10 minutes talking about flight itineraries when there were so many important things to talk about, topics that would connect us on a much deeper level? I was a little freaked out that night. I didn't know what but, I got used to that quality, and I wasn't surprised that, you know, in recent years when Elliot would visit us at our house in Brooklyn, he'd, you know, ask me how my relationship with Jonathan was as I was dragging the suitcase up the stairs. Okay, hold on, can we just like sit down for a second? But more than getting used to that quality, I learned from it and was inspired by it, and I think about it all the time. What are the conversations that matter? How best can we connect to other people? Elliot, we all know, is a master at it, and that's something, you know, demonstrated by the fact that so many of us are gathered here today. Elliot always used to say he was playing with house money because his parents and Anita had died so young. I'm glad he got more time than he expected, but for all of us who love him so much and will miss him so much, it certainly was not enough time.
Hi, my name is Lucy Blum, and I am Elliot's eldest grandchild. When I think about my grandpa, a few sweet memories come to my mind. In Cape Cod, I always loved walking into the house and instantly smelling the warm bread and the fish that he cooked. Another memory is the swimming stroke I named after my grandpa, the grandpa swimming stroke. I always remember the first time that he came into the water with us. We all helped him in, but then as soon as he was in the water, he plunged in, doing a stroke that now I do every time I'm in the water. I will never forget the few times when I was standing on the opposite side of the house and I heard him screaming joy about backgammon. He was open to playing it with anyone, even me, and I sucked at it. But he would still sit across from me patiently, smiling at me the whole time. Lastly, a lot of you may not know this, but my grandpa loved to shop. Every year for my birthday, I would get a beautiful dress. In fact, the dress I'm wearing today, he gave me. There are so many more memories, and I really, really wish that there was time to make more memories. I wish that we could have all gone to Mexico together like we planned. I wish he could have seen me with bottom braces. I wish I could tell him about my first year of sleepaway camp. I wish he could be here for my bat mitzvah. Lastly, I wish he could have been part of my future. I will always love my grandpa, and I will always remember him.
Introduce myself. Hi, I'm Joey Blum. I'm Elliot's youngest son. First, thank you for being here today. Alright, my father was an amazing man. The last week has really shown me the profound effect that he's had on his community. His presence was a larger than life, and his generosity, kindness, understanding, and patience will be the building blocks for my future. My mother has always been my coach, but my father has always been my cheerleader. I will miss him very much. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Belinda Blum. I'm Elliot's daughter. Dear Dad, I wrote this as a letter. I didn't write this. He hasn't read this. Dear Dad, over the past few days, I've been meeting and hearing from so many people. Family, friends, your colleagues, past interns, the guys who made your iced venti at Starbucks. your favorite butcher, Pamela. They all confirmed what I already imagined to be true. That you touched so many people's lives. That you affected so many people in small and big ways because of it was your butcher that said to me just a few days ago, I'm a better person from knowing him. People felt really good around you because you accepted people for who they are. I can consider myself one of the luckiest ones because I have you as my dad. And I say have in the present tense because you will always be my dad and I will always have what you gave me. Perhaps I'm the luckiest because I've had a lifetime of free therapy. I could talk to you about anything. I don't know many kids that can say that about their father. I will miss sitting with you all those mornings and nights, talking and laughing while you smoked your cigar, and I taking it in, fumes and all. I have feared this moment, as I shared with you many times, of facing a world without you in it. But you said to me one day, Belinda, you should be thankful that you've had me around as long as you have. I think you were teaching me to appreciate every present moment. Well, I heard you, and though I feel immense pain right now, I can also say I feel immense gratitude. You have been the most loving and amazing father who has always been there for me. You gave me the tools to know how best to get the most out of my life. I know the power of generosity because of you. I feel the excitement of listening and asking questions to people because of you. I know that kindness perpetuates kindness. I know that a sense of humor is more valuable than money, and love has the most value of them all. My heart is warm and open and always curious because your heart was warm and open and always curious. I know the importance of accepting and loving oneself because that is exactly how you were. There was never a moment that you were not you, table manners and all. You did it your way. You and Mom walked with you, and I could not have felt more proud to be holding your hand. While DC might smell less like cigars now, without you here, there is a great void that seems even greater than a human being. Your presence sometimes seems larger than life. I look out today and I see so many people that are here because you listen to them and they listen to you. And so for me, and I imagine for everyone that has known you, you will continue to be a gift. As you flow through me, you will continue to be that gift that I will give to those I know or to the strangers that I meet, or maybe to my own butcher. But most important, you will be there as I raise my own daughters and be a loving partner to your son-in-law, Eric. My dad loved quotes. I think he liked big thoughts in small packages. And so I want to end with this one from Maya Angelou. I have learned that people will forget what you said. People will forget what you did. But people will never forget how you made them feel. I will never forget, Dad. I love you.
Hi, everybody. Hello. Elliot reminds me, don't just do something, stand there. He wanted a roast, but I'm not going to do it. Hi, everybody. I am Elliot Blum, son in love, and my name is Eric. Here we are. How lucky in love are we? How many here have been filled with the love from Elliot Blum? Go ahead, and look around. Just look around, please. See each other, please. How many here have been touched by his generosity? And how many here think of him and smile? Right? That won't change. I think we have that. You know? Elliot Blum taught me what love is. It was around the 3-year mark that Blum and I were together around 2003. Where we were uncertain about how we saw the future in differing ways. And Elliot took me aside and in a moment said, listen, whatever happens between you and Belinda, I still love you and it's okay. I was hooked. It was soon after that moment that we began a serious relationship, Elliot and I. I call him. It's true. And that relationship was over the backgammon table. We explored the nuances of the game while excavating the meaning of life. We would play and then talk. Over the 3 years of play, over 3 years of play had gone by when I began recording the insights that Elliot would have. So 3 years of like, what's backgammon? And then I'm realizing that Elliot had so much wisdom that I have to write it down as it comes. So I have 4 books of Elliot's responses to, so what happened there? Every game, and I'm saying over 1,000 games in over 9 or 10 years of serious play and seriously recording the wisdom that came through. The gaps between games fluctuated according to our need to deduce the activity of the universe. And we did. We learned so much from every roll. Here are some of the things we learned. The path that we travel is always the goal. Backgammon is not about the dice, it's a battle with one's own ego. Play without ego or greed. You'll lose the game with either one. Easily ask for what you want to see. The dice doesn't hear you when you're screaming. And Elliot loved this one. Discretion is the better part of valor. If you're going to hit an attack, be discreet. You are the servant of chance, so roll the dice. And know that when you're feeling good, the universe will come to you. Have no fear of being hit, no fear of attacking others. Just play forward. Insane transcendence awaits when you put the chance in your cup, the instrument of change. That cup is here. The Bronx Bull, or as I call him, Big E, he loved the dice in his cup. For him, backgammon was an exercise in positive thinking. The karmic turnaround can be very quick. At one moment, you can feel totally defeated, only to give way to a shift. It's about being ready for that right roll, at the right time, all the time. And when the lucky roll shines on you, arm yourself with gratitude, humility, as you enjoy your expansion. In 2013, the horse California Chrome was 300-1, and the following year he wins the Kentucky Derby. Anything can happen. Keep playing. Biggie had the wrist. He had like a sweet release to it, you know? The dice's last human touch, giving it up to the void, the mystery, giving it up to the chance and the strings of one's desire. Big E would employ the wrist for special moments, dipping into the cosmic wonderment. He knew how to roll off big hits like Mickey Mantle on a good day. During our play, there were things that Elliot asked me to tell you. Please imagine with me, in this room, there's a huge orange banner with a creamsicle script that says, as we heard, he played with house money. Okay? Now let's open that up for a second, because Elliot wants you to know that he lived more than a free life. It was not life with freedom. He played without house money is saying to us that Elliot lived life with abandon. His curiosity and gratitude came from surviving his childhood. At 5 years old, he had a hernia that put him in an adult hospital for 2 weeks. Imagine Elliot, 5 years old, with adult patients. That's funny. And his mother always came to visit at 3 p.m. So he had that regularity of family, always there for him, as he was alone in an adult hospital. It's crazy. Ever since he got home from his hospital stay, he was taken care of at home, though his dad used to say that Elliot was always late and $1 short. And later in life, Elliot would throw down serious cash for a big dinner, then couldn't pay for the laundry. He wants you to know that. He wants you to know that he worked as a 55-cent an hour usher while racking up pool games for $5 a go. He turned his lifestyle into his art form, and this is what led to Elliot's house money abandoned. The biggest sin he saw around was in people not being their unique self without fear. He said, people see me as a strange being, and it took years to understand my strangeness. And my uniqueness, he says, equals, I am armed with gratitude. And people let Elliot be himself because it was simple, because of his simplicity. Elliot was so smooth, he was able to write his own obituary. In it, he called himself a deep trawler, which I didn't know what he was talking about, and he wasn't going to change this word. A deep trawler is a ship that drags nets at the bottom of the ocean. That's who he is. He wanted to go deep all the time, as we heard. One of Elliot's influential books was James Kavanaugh's There Are Men Too Gentle to Live Among Wolves. There are millions of us. We are not unhappy, but neither are we really content. We continue to explore life, hoping to uncover its ultimate secret. We continue to explore ourselves, hoping to understand. With faith and no doubt, Big E wins this mystical ride, and Elliot's emancipation is everyone's. We shall be free. It's the only victory there is. I am Elliot Blum's love, and we are Elliot Blum's love. That is all from me.
Good.
I'm Sally Gilbert, and Ann and I have been friends since the first day of college, which you don't have to be a mathematician to know that was quite a long time ago. Ann's my family, Elliot was my family, Elliot stays my family. I'm glad to be here with you and remember the wonder that he held about the world. So I'm going to sing a little song. I see roses too. Oh, jeez.
La la la.
Let's start again.
Yeah, baby.
I see trees of green, red roses too. I see them bloom for me and you. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. I see skies of blue and clouds of white, the bright blessed day, the dark sacred night, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. The colors of the rainbow, so pretty in the sky, are also in the faces of people walking by. I see friends shaking hands, saying, how do you do? They're really saying, I love you. I hear babies cry, I watch them grow. They'll know much more than we'll ever know. And I say to myself, what a wonderful world. And I say to myself, what a wonderful world.
Yeah, yeah, can we? Yeah, we can. It's okay. It's okay. We're not in church. We're not in church.
It's time for old friends to speak. And Mr. Chris.
I know if I went up those steps, I'd trip. But I can't go that way. I'm Richard Klein. Elliot is my closest and dearest friend for over 70 years. The 55 cents an hour was the Earl Theater on 161st Street in the Bronx.
Thank you.
And the $5 Iraq pool was in Joe's Pool on 161st.
Thank you.
We grew up together. Elliot at 1100 Grand Concourse and me at Carroll Place. My parents were divorced. My father wasn't around much. Elliot's parents adopted me, brought me into the family. I was very much a part of the family, went to family circle meetings, and that continued. Elliot is the godfather of my grandson. I was told to keep it short, so I was there when Elliot made a decision, spontaneously, to become a psychologist. We were both students at City College, the Baruch School, on 23rd Street, Lexington Avenue. It was the end of his freshman year. He was an accounting major. We were walking to the subway, the D train, to get back to the Bronx, which was about 7 blocks along 23rd Street going west. We got to 6th Avenue and Broadway. We came together with a tremendous intersection. We're crossing the street and the light changed. And there was traffic in front of us and traffic behind us. Elliot turned to me and said, "Rich, grab my arm. I'm going to drop accounting. I'm going to drop Kogan, that was an accountant he was working for, and I'm going to drop Judy, who was a girl he was dating. I'm going to major in psychology." He majored in psychology, did beautifully. I think that's Elliot. And He was in psychiatry. Following that, we both went to work for the New York City Department of Welfare as social investigators. Elliot was there 2 years, I was there 6 months. He went and got his master's degree at LIU, and then got married and went to Florida. The rest, you guys all know about. There was a 20-year hiatus in our relationship. Things we don't have to go into here. But we got together. We got together. There were 5 of us grew up together. When one of us, Martin Wallach, interesting, Wallach, died, it was my job to contact everyone, and I contacted Elliot. And we got back together with Nita, who was like a sister. The bizarre kind of awareness that the first 30 years was the Blum family, and the last years with the Blum family. I never was able to figure that out. But anyway, our relationship didn't skip a beat. We had those long 2-hour in-depth conversations. I spoke to him at least once every 2 weeks, and we were together very often. We were friends before orange was his favorite color. And it's kind of ironic that I've spent the last 45 years of my life living in West Orange, New Jersey. Elliot was the most emotionally, psychologically, and intellectually honest person I've ever known. He had simple pleasures, sushi, a good cigar, and those little cigars you make yourself.
Tiny cigars.
As a matter of fact, I know that I believe it was on his 70th birthday. He, Belinda, and Jonathan went to Amsterdam to try the Dutch little cigars.
Good cigar.
I asked him during one of our conversations outside his little study in Maryland if he was happy. And he told me, yes, I'm happy. I don't worry about money. And my soulmate. I think he professionally was most content and happy as director of training at St. Elizabeth's and when he was a therapist with his patients. I think that's all he wanted really out of life, professionally. Someone once said that a person is not dead if someone keeps them in their heart and in their thoughts. If that's true, Elliot's going to be alive as long as I'm alive, and as I look around, I think it's going to be a lot longer than that. Thank you.
Thank you, Rich.
I'm Ronnie Kane. I want to talk about Elliot and our enduring, loving friendship. I met Elliot when he called me in the winter of 1973 in Austin, Texas. He called to interview me for a clinical psychology training slot. I have little memory of that interview. However, I feel confident that Elliot would remember the significant points that led him to accept me. He had an excellent memory for his interns. My life was changed forever by coming to St. Elizabeth's. 5 years later, he was instrumental in changing my life again. By that time, I was a staff psychologist at St. Elizabeth's, and Elliot decided to place his first chief resident, Mark Feldman, on my unit. I was to be Mark's supervisor. Elliot loved pairing students with supervisors, taking into account each student's temperament and needs with those of the supervisor. He enjoyed playing alchemist, especially when it led to growth and self-actualization for the student. I think he always knew what he was doing when he paired Mark with me. So I'm sure he wasn't surprised that Mark and I ended up married. He danced at our wedding. My friendship with Elliot actually began sometime in '76 or '77, when Elliot invited me out to lunch. I believe it was to celebrate my PhD. From there, we became good friends and co-therapists. I also invited him to join my AAP, which is the American Academy of Psychotherapists, for any who don't know, the AAP peer group. And Elliot and I traveled together for decades to our group's winter meetings. On the way down, we would discuss our wishes and fears. And on the way back, we talked about how meaningful it was and how glad we were that we had gone. We went to each other's celebrations, weddings, bat and bar mitzvahs, art openings, important birthdays, funerals, and much more. He was there when our children arrived and held them and loved them. Elliot's warm, loving spirit was known to everyone in my family. But mostly, Elliot and I had lunch once a week for about 40 years, on Tuesday. We only missed if one of us was out of town or really sick. We had lunch and talked about everything: work, children, family, and each other. We shared heartaches and delights. We prodded and encouraged each other. Of course, as with any close relationship, we had the occasional argument, which sometimes required follow-up phone calls. We celebrated each other's birthdays on the Tuesday closest to it. It was often the occasion when Elliot could convince me to share a dessert. He did love desserts. When the adoption agency sent us a picture of our son, I brought it to lunch. And gave it to Elliot. David was a very sick little baby, hospitalized in his first month in Korea. It was evident in his picture. Elliot looked at the photo and said, "I could love that little boy." And then I felt less scared. We met every week and never ran out of something to talk about. We have had to change restaurants for a variety of reasons, but each place knew us after a short while and remembered what we ordered and where we liked to sit. It would become what Elliot liked to call the longest running lunch in history. I could count on him being there in full spirit, to comfort if need be, to laugh, to encourage, to share with each other and be met. Tuesdays will never be the same.
And not being able to say, probably because of you, I'm writing this. It's certainly not what I'd be choosing to do before the first light in an ordinary universe of possibilities. But here I am doing it, and really, where else would I be? I'm looking out now at the sea of faces of people you touched. I'm reminded of what a powerful, indomitable force you were. It's inconceivable to me that you're not here, although your influence is everywhere around me. I met Elliot in the 80s, although I have no recollection of the exact event. It was before I moved to DC, and it was at an American Academy of Psychotherapists summer workshop. I think that because I remember we were sitting outdoors after dark on a large lawn together, I think smoking something. We drifted toward each other over time after I came to Washington, in part because I had been divorced and had just married Molly, and he was in a similar position with Anne. We spent many hours discussing deep and often difficult issues that were stirring in both of us in those days, in the way that Elliot did. I had little idea then of how much Elliot would come to mean to me and how close we'd become as friends and as a foursome that included Molly and Anne. As I'm sure some of you know, some of you may not, he and Anne had a wonderful relationship that I know he treasured, and the loss of him for her really breaks my heart. My heart also goes out to Jonathan, Belinda, Joey. It leaves a gigantic hole. You all know that Elliot made friends wherever he went, as attested by the number of people here. And this number is dwarfed by the number of people who would have been here if they could have been. That was the kind of person he was. He was always himself. I've been talking to people over the last couple of days, and remarkably, or actually unremarkably knowing Elliot, everyone who knew him seemed to have Elliot stories. I assume we'll hear more today. And Elliot was a special person. He wasn't just a customer, a supervisor, a colleague. He wasn't just an anything. He was special to everyone who knew him, and he was special because he wanted to know people and wanted to allow himself to be seen. Elliot loved his work. In recent years, we talk about the idea of retirement, a concept that seemed to have no meaning to him. He didn't see doing therapy as work, although he prided himself rightly as being, and these are my words, because I don't think he would ever use these words to describe himself, a gifted therapist. He was too humble for that. In fact, Elliot felt extremely lucky that he found a profession where he could earn a living just by being himself. He used to proudly tell stories of his father, Dr. Blum, a dentist, who was kind to everyone and was revered as a treasure in his community. Elliot, you did him proud. Elliot's office was a place where he'd go to spend time with people he cared about, and they in turn cared about him. Who wouldn't? His work was as much a part of him as his cigars or his ubiquitous orange clothes. Hat, jacket, shirts, pants, you all know. I mean, the man wore orange pants. How many men do you know who had a signature color? Orange. Who else could have pulled that one off? I'm wearing orange. You know, my mother told me never to wear orange. It wasn't a good color for me. Several months ago, I was doing a personal history project, and I had an early memory that included Moxie. Does anybody here know what Moxie was? Yeah, a couple, not many. And I know that you're from Maine, Harry. Actually, Moxie was a soft drink. It's practically extinct now, although I did find out that it's the official drink of the state of Maine. Go figure, but you can look it up. It tasted awful. There's a reason that you all know about Coca-Cola and nobody knows about Moxie. But it meant something to me, and I went online and I found out that I could get a hat with the Moxie logo on it. I ordered it, and it came, and it was bright orange. Ruby has one, has the very hat right over there. Moxie, so I got one and I gave it to Elliot. Moxie, as you may know, is also a descriptive word. It means force of character, vigor, courage. I loved seeing Elliot wearing that hat. And Ruby, I love seeing you wearing it too. Elliot certainly modeled Moxie for all the interns and externs he trained, and for his friends, unabashedly, unashamedly, courageously himself. What a model for his children, his patients, his friends, and for everyone who had the good fortune to come into contact with him. Another thing that was striking about Elliot is that he had absolutely no guile. Guile was a word that didn't exist for him. Whether it was wearing a baseball cap, orange of course, to a meal in a gourmet restaurant, or saying the hard thing that needed to be said in a group or a meeting or as a friend or as a therapist, he'd just say it, and in such a way that his power could be felt. Earlier this week, I was talking to Sally Gilbert, who just sang for us, and she said about Elliot that he never beat around the bush. What occurred to me as we were talking is I realized that Elliot had no bushes to beat around. He just was who he was. What he saw was what he got. In that same conversation, Sally asked me what I thought Elliot's genius was. What I came up with was that Elliot had a genius for finding what was lovable in each person and then being with them in a way that they felt their lovability. You know, it was quite a genius. There are some people that he could be with in that way that I just didn't understand, but he could be. And in a loving, caring, accepting way, people responded to him. He was a genius as a therapist in another unique way. You know, he's called himself, and we know of him, some of him, as a Columbo therapist. I watched him in a group going along, seemingly on another plane or another planet, a little disconnected, you know. And then from left field, he'd say exactly the thing that needed to be said. The thing that nobody else had thought about, or the thing that nobody else had the courage to say. He was brilliant. He was passionate and really got into things, you know, cigars, baseball, backgammon, poker, conversation. Once at the end of a dinner together, I think it might have been at the Irish Inn where we often went, or maybe Black Salt, we were having dessert. We had actually dessert, unlike Ronnie, we had dessert at the end of more dinners than was good for either of us. But we had ordered dessert, and whatever dessert came with 2 cookies on each plate, his and mine. Elliot had eaten his, and in the middle of our intense conversation, he was so into what we were talking about that without a thought, he reached across the table, took my remaining cookie and popped it into his mouth. I was agape, and when he realized what he had done, he got flustered and began to laugh, and you know, just that way he does. It was one of the few times that I'd ever seen him at a loss for words. Elliot was one of the most generous people I've ever known. He had a huge heart and was willing to share anything he had. Money meant little to him. He didn't care about making it, and he was always willing to spend it. He loved picking up the check because he loved being able to give to the people that he loved. On Sunday, when Anne was thinking about how much food to order for the gatherings at the house, my thought was Elliot would have said, too much. I miss him terribly. And I feel at this point, I don't even know how much I miss him. For 15 years or so, we've been in a men's group that met once a month, several hours a month. It dwindled a little, it got to 4, then Ray moved to Vermont, then to 3, the other being Ed Sharp. We talk about everything, about life and death, about work, our aches and pains, and sometimes our more serious illnesses. We went through losses with each other. We bitch about and celebrate our spouses and children. Our grandchildren we'd only celebrate. Most importantly, we confront each other with our denials and our avoidances. We kept each other honest. We were there for each other. We had each other's backs. I have a hard time imagining what I'll do without Dad now. Poetry is important to me. That's an aspect that Elliot and I definitely didn't share. But poetry guy he wasn't. But I want to conclude this with some lines from that great New Jersey poet, Bruce Springsteen. They say you can't take it with you, but I think that they're wrong. Because all I know is I woke up this morning and something big was gone. Gone to that dark ether where you're young and strong and bold. Because when they built your brother, they broke the mold. Because when they built you, Elliot, my brother, they sure did break the mold.
I'm Carol Light, and Anne asked me to share cherished memories of Elliot as a member of my family group in the American Academy of Psychotherapists, a group that was very precious to him and to whom he was very precious. It's a group that met for 4 days, 3 times a year for 39 years. Elliot was a member of this group for more than 30 of those years. We met in places all over the USA, and for many years our winter meetings were in Key West, Puerto Rico, and later in places less strenuous to access. You get to know people in ways quite different from social discourse in those settings, and I have really appreciated getting to know parts of Elliot through the people who have spoken that I didn't know even in all those 33 years. A few weeks ago, our group met in Tybee Island, Georgia. And due to attrition caused by death, illness, and age, our group this year was all women. Elliot had been in a couple of earlier group meetings where he said of himself, he felt like the last man standing. I remember him saying he had some apprehension about being able to hold the space of male energy all by himself, and commenting at the end of the group with a twinkle in his eye that he felt like it had gone pretty well, like he'd become one of the girls. At other times, he said he relished having all 5 women to himself. Elliot never stopped working on his issues, wanting to be an ever more conscious and connected husband and father. Rational intelligence, competence, lovability, wisdom, kindness, and outstanding generosity of spirit and sense. He traveled often to spend time with people he loved. He gave of himself and of his wealth. Elliot was a consummate storyteller and joke teller. We have several group jokes where all one has to say is a 1 or 2 word punchline, and all of us will smile. Some of you may have heard those jokes. The punchlines that stick with me are, good though, or he never writes, he never calls, scissors all the way down. Those are a few of them, and if you want to hear the rest of the story, ask me later. Elliot struggled with habits he knew were not good for his health, his close relationship with his cigars, and his love of good food. For many years, Elliot brought lasagna to our group for our first meal of the winter meeting. This involved bringing in his suitcase, on an airplane, 2 frozen lasagnas, one with meat, one without, and 2 vats of tomato sauce, one with meat and one without. He caringly tried to respond to everyone's particular food needs, whether we went to Puerto Rico, Texas, Florida, or Georgia. It was his love offering to us. A few weeks ago at our meeting in Tidy, for reasons not necessary to explain, Elliot missed his first winter meeting in 33 years. When we called him, and he said he wanted us to know was that he felt he was in a very, very happy time in his life, feeling very close and connected to Anne, hopeful about the health and development of all his children and grandchildren, and that he was in a peaceful place, feeling good about himself. We missed his sweet storytelling, his jokes, his perceptive observations, his warm, attentive smile, and our family group will miss his presence forevermore.
So we're going to take the 7th inning stretch. You can stand up and stretch, and then we're going to sing a song. Say something. We have these beautiful children here who are carrying microphones. Secure one, you're not paying attention, you won't know what to do. They're going to bring the microphone to you if you want to say something. So we encourage you to say what you feel, but not to take too much time. Okay?
And Elliot's been my brother-in-law for many years, and he really was the best brother-in-law anyone could have. And he saw me through many, many times that were really difficult for me, and he gave me so much, and I'm very grateful.
My name is Skyla. Friend of the family. I've known Joey, I think, about 17 years. And I'm sorry, every time I think about him, Elliot was like a father to me. And I've always been around and supportive and keeping me out of trouble. And who knows where I would be today without him. Annie. So it's been such a blessing to have the opportunity to get to know him. And it's amazing to see everybody here and just know that he's touched so many other people's lives as well. I honestly don't even know if I'd be alive today if it wasn't for him and her, and the support that they've given me and the generosity that he's shown me, and he has also helped me as well, giving me lots of bricks to build my foundation for my future, just like any good parent would or should. And I feel very grateful to have known him and towards him for taking me in. And it's really such a blessing.
Thank you.
Isn't she cute?
Hi, I'm Cynthia, and I just wanted to say one thing that I think everybody here knows, but for some reason hasn't been said, and that is, bar none, Elliot Blum's best hugs ever.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Kisses, too.
Oh, there's one more.
I'm Vincent. Back in about 67 or 68, I was an intern at St. Elizabeth's. And at the time, Elliot was chief psychologist in forensics. So he was my chief supervisor, but when the internship started, he was on vacation. So when I appeared at his office door for my first appointment, I'd never seen him or heard him. So now I went in. An hour later, I came out. I thought, what just happened? What just happened? I was always accustomed to linear communication. Beginning, middle, end. So I thought, okay, who knew that I would be supervised by James Joyce? Or Woody Allen. The way that I came to think about Elliot's communication style and how to deal with it was, y'all remember those obvious electric typewriters that had the balls with the symbols and letters on them? Well, sitting in the chair opposite him, I felt it was like throwing those balls at me, just throwing them. And I couldn't, on a moment-to-moment basis, figure out what was going on or what was being said. But if I got in and had enough times with those balls, then I could kind of get
Hold the microphone.
So flash forward a little bit. I came on staff at St. Elizabeth's and eventually went to work for Elliot in psychology training with Elliot at the Maxim House. So we became friends and colleagues. One day we were going for lunch. We were driving to someplace. And he said, oh, yeah, I'm on a diet. I said, oh, what? That's good, that's good. We get to the restaurant, we order whatever we order. And at the end he says, and I'll have the coconut cream pie. I said, I thought you were on a diet. He said, I usually have two.
Hi, my name is Doug.
Hi, Doug.
I start off being honest like Elliot would, I have to say. I am so jealous of the Blum children. You're so fortunate to have him for a dad. I was an intern, like many of the others at St. E's. I had a very critical father my whole life who maintained that he never made a spelling mistake in his life. And then I met Elliot. He was the antidote to my father. He didn't care. When I decided to do the orange, I realized I don't know how to do a pocket square, so it just sort of stuck in there, and I said, oh, Elliot would love it, and just like that. So there was a story I told that Elliot asked me to tell at his last birthday party, and said he thought it was a good description of him, and I think this is a good description of Elliot. I was an intern. I must have been making some notes in my chart or something before my individual supervision session with Elliot, and I must have taken my pen without a top and stuck it in my pocket. I had either a white or a light blue shirt on. Did my supervision session with Elliot, all the vague places we would go. Came out of my session, and as soon as someone saw me, they said, Doug, what the fuck happened to your shirt? And I said, what do you mean? I looked down, my whole shirt, I had blue like this, all through it, soaked through into my skin, so I had blue dye on my skin. So I'm thinking, what the hell, Elliot, why didn't you tell me? You must have seen it spreading. And the next supervision session, I'm ready to go back to Elliot and confront him, and I say, Elliot, what the hell happened that you saw this? And I go in, and Elliot's got food and some kind of thing over here, I don't even know what it is. And I looked at Elliot and I said, oh, so this is it. It really doesn't matter what I look like. He loves me no matter what. He loves me so deeply. It really doesn't matter. I will miss Elliot very much, and yet, as other people said, he will live through me. I'm a much better man for knowing Elliot. Love you, Elliot.
Elliot, Ray, and I, and many others over the years spent time together each month, and I came to love Elliot. And during the course of that time, Elliot and I started having lunches together. I will never forget my first lunch with Elliot. We sat fairly close at the table. We were Clyde's, his favorite. And the food was flying. It was flying out of his mouth. And I had the instinct, but I repressed it, to just cover my dish. Anybody know that? But as we had more and more lunches together, I came to experience that as communion. And as a Catholic, I know what that means. And I welcomed his overspray. On Monday morning, I had the good fortune to go to the Renwick Gallery, where I recommend it if you haven't. There are several installations, one of which is a woman named Janet Eckelman, and she has depicted graphically and beautifully the force field that was generated by the tsunami that hit Fukushima in 2011. She entitled it 1.8. And the 1.8 refers to the effect of that tsunami. It was so powerful, it shifted the Earth's axis such that it shortened the day by 1.8 millionths of a second. So as I say goodbye to Elliot, I come to understand that intuition, wisdom, empathy, and love that suffered an equal setback.
If I should say anything, but I'll tell you my mother's maiden name. My mother's maiden name is Blum. My mother and Elliot's father were brother and sister. Though the times that we've spent together through the years as cousins were never enough, they were very powerful. And what was the most powerful time was when it started, when Julie and my husband and I moved to Washington from New York City. This was in 1974. You couldn't even buy a single slice of pizza in Washington then. This place had nothing. It had the Capitol, it had the government. Whenever I went to anything, my husband was here for a congressman. Whenever we went there, when they asked me and they shouted out some initials, "What do you do?" And I looked at them and I said, "I'm a psychologist." The conversation immediately stopped. They looked over my head, glazed over, and walked away. So I wondered, how could I ever fit in here? And I'll tell you how we were able to fit in here. We were able to fit in here because Debbie and Elliot opened up their home to us. And then I knew I was in a home where I could be, where the food that I left behind was plentiful, and the love and the caring was there for us. And it continued, and it continued, and it continued. I watched Elliot with Debbie nourish these two beautiful children who you've heard from today. They're not who they are from accidents. They're here and the way they talk and who they are because they were nourished. As you all tried to nourish your patients and your loved ones and your family. They nursed Julian and me. I watched changes in the family, and I will tell you, the first time that the two families merged, Elliot and Ann and Debbie were at my daughter's wedding. They agreed to come to the wedding. And from that, all of them did what many families could never do. They grew to love and accept where the other person was. And this love and acceptance and sharing and commitment was also fostered by Elliot. And it will continue. It will continue for his children, all of his children, and his grandchildren. Because Elliot gave the love, never expecting anything in return, just like these two wonderful women, Debbie and Ann, do, just like his children, Jonathan, Linda, and Debbie do, his children-in-law, Eric and Barbara, and his grandchildren will do, because they have seen it in their grandfather, they've seen it how the family has lived their life and will continue to live their life. And I hope that all of you who are here today will continue giving the love to them as Elliot has always given his love to you. I did this once before when I was studying drama. I did this wonderful monologue, and I finished the monologue and I went down to my seat and I started to cry because I left out a very important line. And I have left out a very important person whose heart and soul Elliot poured into, and whose heart and soul he now pours out to his family, and that's Joey. I will never forget you, Joey. And though in my anxiety of speaking in front of this group, he, as his brother and sister, carry the gift of Elliot within him. Thank you.
I'm Bert. Elliot was my director of training in St. Elizabeth's and generously kept me on for 2 years while I grew up as a resident and team leader. He became my group therapist for 5 or 6 years with Ronnie, a fellow poker player. He danced at my wedding. He taught me so much. I owe him a great debt of gratitude. I will miss him very much.
I'm Ellen Libby. Like others, I've shared a meal or two with Elliot, but what I have to say is really to you and him. Elliot and I would traditionally try and have lunch during summer workshop, and in the early days, he usually had his arm around me, comforting me about whatever was the last trauma in my life. And as time went on, we would spend our time talking about how much he loved you, and that one of the hardest things in the world for him to do was to allow you to enter the academy in your own time, your own pace, in your own way. He would talk about his impatience because he got so much from the academy and he wanted you to do the same. And I absolutely learned so much from his ability to talk about his frustration and work so hard about respecting you and all of that. He said the greatest gift of love he could give you was letting you do it your own way.
I'm Gordon Cohen, and it hasn't happened often in my life, maybe just a few times, where I've met someone who's changed the course of my life. It was 1985, and Elliot was the director of psychology training, and I had one of the most unique and stimulating interviews I'd ever had experienced before. But at that point, I knew that this man, this program that he had created, was something that I wanted very much to be a part of. You know, back then, St. Elizabeth's was a really well-renowned national training center, which was part of the NIMH, the National Institute of Mental Health. And Elliot was really was one of the chief coordinators who put this program together. It's a place that so many of us that you've been listening to today were a part of. So I moved down from New York and have set my life up down here. I've been here ever since. And Elliot, always with each of his trainees and with each of his patients and with each of the people that he knows, always treats people with that same exquisite level of sensitivity and care. And you all know what I'm talking about if you spend any time with him. So, Elliot, I took my office in the same building as Elliot 30 years ago, 3000 Connecticut Avenue. and I've been there ever since. It's been a really hard week this week, really painful for me. I've just been walking around with my head down, looking up and around every time, thinking that I'm going to see him at the Starbucks or in the mailroom or around the hall. He's not there. I'll miss Elliot Blum dearly.
Just gonna hand over.
My name is Mark Feldman.
Back row with the ties. Second to back row.
And what I want to say is that I owe Elliot an enormous debt of gratitude. I credit him with inspiring me really to be a clinical psychologist. I thought he had the keys to the kingdom, actually, in terms of, for me, understanding unconscious process. He encouraged me to cultivate my own shamelessness, which led me to be open to my own chaotic inner life, which he relished knowing about. And I relished knowing about his chaotic, wonderful, primitive, shameless inner life. And he introduced me to my wife, as you know. And he welcomed us into his neighborhood. We lived a few blocks from Elliot and Debbie and their children. I'll miss him greatly. There's nothing more I can say. I'll miss him greatly.
My name is Max, and so far I think everyone has spoken from Elliot, knowing Elliot outside of the office. I know Elliot from inside the office. And I've been with him for about 3 years. And mostly our time together was a lot of raucous laughter. We shared a lot of stories, and I used to tell people that I was going to story hour, that I had an appointment, I was going to story hour. And he would give me things too. He would give me, one year when he got back from one of those professional conferences, he said, "Look at this brochure, it's full of all these wonderful quotes," and he read like a dozen to me, and I said, "I gotta take that home and copy it." And he would give me little bookmarks that had a great quote on it and so forth. This, it would be relevant to whatever we were talking about. And one gift that I'll always cherish, he gave me his copy of Shel Silverstein's Where the Sidewalk Ends. And he had a bookmark in it. And he said, "I want you to read this to me. Read this." And it's very short. It's called Magic. Sandra's seen a leprechaun. Eddie touched a troll. Lori danced with witches once. Charlie found a goblin's gold. Donald heard a mermaid sing. Susie spied an elf. But all the magic I have known, I've had to make myself. And I would say, thank you, Elliot, for helping me make magic too.
You got saying you'll never win. That's when the grin should start. You gotta have home. Mustn't sit around and moan. Life's half as bad as it may appear. Wait till next year and hope. When your luck is bad zero, get your chin up off the floor. Sister, you can be a hero. nothing to it but to do it. You gotta have heart, miles and miles and miles of heart. Oh, it's fine to be a genius, of course, but keep that old horse before the cart. First you gotta have heart. You gotta have heart. All you really need is heart. When the odds are saying you'll never win, that's when the grin should start. First you gotta have heart. Then you gotta have heart.
That's it.
We're asking all of you to join us in the hall after the service. I don't know whether it is, but join us there. And we're going to sing the in this honor. You gotta have a heart. It's on your program.
That's it.